Welcome to the Camp Symposium focused on transportation. We've got uh, five experts here that can help you with whatever questions you have. Why don't we start with each panel member saying a little bit about their history and at Burning Man and what they know about transportation as a way to get started. What do you say? Paul, you want to start?
Happy to start. So this year will be my 8th year going to Burning Man. I've took an RV the first 3 years and pulled a trailer the last 4 years. And I've learned a lot and had lots of problems. So you guys can learn from me. This last year, my experience was on the way. I had coming down through a mountain pass. I had my brakes go out completely on my truck, pulling my trailer. Basically, I made it down the hill by downshifting and using my manual electric brakes on my trailer to get to the bottom of the hill to finally get to a spot where I could stop. When I got out of the car pulled up alongside. Do you want me to call the fire department? I said, well, why? He said, because your car's on fire. And what happened was what ended up happening was my brakes overheated from the weight, carrying such a big load on my trailer. And they were brand new brakes. I had them just done before I went. But that's just a learning lesson for you guys to not, to let your brakes cool. But my brakes actually broke apart, caught the sparks from, the pad came out and the sparks from that actually caught the inside of my wheel well on fire. And so that was my experience going to Burning Man. Ended up having to take my truck to a mechanic shop and getting someone to come from Burning Man to get my trailer. We had 2 flat tires on the way to Burning Man. And then on the way home, we came over a ridge on 395. And as we came over the ridge, all the cars in front of us were stopped. Pretty much impossible for us to stop with the trailer behind us. And we ended up jackknifing the car. The trailer turned sideways and flipped over. And we had a good lesson learned on the side of the road.
Yeah, well, that's a rough story, man.
Yeah, but I lived through it. The vehicle didn't flip over or cause any damage, which was, no injuries. We didn't hit any other cars, very, very luckily. But I definitely, for the other people in this panel or in the group here, definitely have some information to help you guys, learn more about how to check your weights, check your brakes, check your bearings, so many different things that need to be done.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. Boy Scout, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. I'm Boy Scout. I've been doing building at Burning Man. I've been point man for more than 20 years. I'm personally organizing a 50-person theme camp and building art like the Kylopod or the Sonic Runway, and also I was around when Burners Without Borders was founded in Camp Biloxi, or Camp Katrina, I mean. But I've been, the last year, the thing I'm most proud of is I hauled in more than 1,000 gallons of water and gave it away at my hydration station at 3 o'clock Plaza. And bringing in the infrastructure for large scale art projects is, you learn things about how weight shift and how, and you have somebody that knows how to tie a load down. It's the best recipe for all of it. Learn from them. But I can answer questions or help other folks. Over.
Okie doke. Fixer, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Fixer Andy Owens. I founded Root Pile Camp on Playa. It's about a 150-person camp with a large infrastructure, and I'm moving more towards helping people with transport and the storage of trailers and things now. But so we worked with an OSS company last year on that and kind of turned over running the camp to my wife. luckily for me. Just can't really do both roles, but it takes 13 trailers to do root pile. I think 7 of those are semis. We haul about 6,000 gallons of water to 3,000 gallons of gray water and a lot of heavy trailers. I have a storage yard in Empire where we store semi trailers for people, and then we coordinate them getting their delivered to their camp on Playa and then back to Empire. So, but I've done the whole gamut of how to get stuff there. We're based in North Carolina, so we used to bring, pick up with a big flatbed, and then we're using we've had as many as 6 vehicle at one time going out west at the same time. And then we moved to storing in Fernley and using a U-Haul type truck and loading, unloading, which is a nightmare that all y'all are aware of. So then I think about 6 or 7 years ago, we moved to having a semi for our camp, just a small 26-foot pup. And that was just an amazing change because the trailer comes into camp, unload it, use the trailer, whatever you want, load it back up, put the lock on it, and go home. Trailer goes back to where it's being stored. And there's lots of other people that do that too, besides us. But and I've had plenty of horror stories too. You'll look right here. We turned over a semi on the way out last year. The brakes failed on the flatbed and we lost a truck on it. It was a nightmare. It would take me an hour to tell you the story of last year, and that's with pro drivers. So hauling trailers is something you need to practice, that's for sure. But I love helping people with their camp logistics. I started with 1 trailer and now we've converted 57 camps, I think, to delivered storage from Empire. So I feel like that was a pretty good effort towards sustainability and getting people off the road and all that kind of thing. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Jenna, you want to give us a quick summary?
Yeah, I've been going since 2003 to this dusty little party pretty much every year. And I run transportation for different festivals on the West Coast, doing all of the logistics and running teams of CDLs and other drivers for all varying trailers, flats, dry vans, whatever that holds, as well as Australia, working in the operations there and currently working in a job also doing logistics. So that's my experience. I have had 0 accidents. But I'm also really meticulous and I take it pretty seriously. So that's
okay.
all.
Well, then do we have questions coming in? Jenna, are we, let's see. What questions would people have of our panel?
I think one of the most, one of the things we need to talk about is weight distribution, putting your dense, heavy stuff on the bottom, your heavier stuff towards the front of your trailer, and saving your bit. Even like a bicycle seems heavy, but it's not dense. So put it high, higher, and put your dense, lighter or heavier stuff, lower, and, keep your center of gravity down.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to have, am I there?
Yep.
Okay. You definitely don't want to have too many heavy things higher up in the trailer. And the more weight you have in the back, the trailer's going to swing. It's going to swing around and it'll push your vehicle around, especially if you don't have, manual trailer brakes, because you can use those to let the trailer slow you down and pull you back in line. What they say, getting back under it in the trucking world. Because when you're starting to jackknife, you really want to don't hit your vehicle brakes. You need to if you have trailer brakes, you need to manually push your trailer brakes a little bit so that the trailer will straighten you back out. But I think the key is making sure you test drive and don't overload your trailer. I mean, how to weigh your trailer? It's a good question. I mean, sometimes you can go to a truck stop and they'll let you weigh there, or at the dump. A lot of times at the dump, you can take your trailer empty and you'll know what it weighs, what your whole rig weighs. And then you could pull the trailer and drive through again. Just ask them to tell you how, what it weighs. Usually there's a LED sign there, or you can pay to weigh things at truck stops too. So it's definitely being overloaded and not having a experienced driver. You really need to make sure you have someone who knows how to drive. It's really important.
I would suggest actually loading up the trailer and learning how to use the trailer brakes when you're just driving around the city or on the highway. It takes a special touch on the brake pedal to activate the booster, and you can feel it slow you down. It's not hard, but you just have to get used to your vehicle and know how it works. Especially if you're coming over the pass and you have 100 gallons of water pushing you. You want the trailer to slow you down. You don't want to be slowing down the trailer.
How do you determine the safe weight for a load on a trailer?
Well, all vehicles have they have a plate that tells you the gross vehicle weight for either your truck, car, or your trailer. So that gross vehicle weight includes the weight of the trailer, and usually that will also say how much the trailer weighs. So that would be the same for your pull vehicle. If you have a pickup that has a gross vehicle weight of, let's say, maybe 15,000, let's say, and the truck weighs 7, then you really should only be pulling about 5 or 6 or 7 with that vehicle, But even then, you still need to know how to drive. So, I mean, I'm not the greatest driver in the world, but I know what I'm up against. I could pull a 10,000 pound trailer with a small truck if I just knew, you just have to be careful,
I think it's really hard for us to give every scenario to teach somebody how to drive, but there's a lot of really good YouTube videos that people can watch to learn how to use your trailer brakes, how to adjust them properly, how to drive and brake into, before a corner, things like that. That's really helpful.
There's also a lot of people that know how to drive. So yeah, just get somebody who knows how to fucking drive. That's the best point.
Well, there have been some.
I saw a couple of questions. Jenna, was there some questions?
There's a little bit more. There's Slacker said that Cat Scales have a great app now where you don't have to leave your vehicle. And then just more ideas for on weight. No questions yet. We did have some prompt things we discussed before. You guys are doing a really good job of covering them, like how to weigh your trailer, how much does your trailer weigh, understanding your tow limits for your vehicle, understanding your hitch limits, and then where those plates are found on your vehicles and whatnot.
Yeah, hitch limits, that's a good one there. If you look at on your vehicle and on your hitch and on the trailer, it will say, this hitch is only good for 400 pounds tongue weight or something like that. And that means you don't want to put more than 300 pounds pressure that the actual hitch on the trailer is pushing down on the truck or the car or whatever. So that's really important because you're going to be pushing the back end of that vehicle down, and that makes it to where you don't have as good a control. You definitely don't want to have the rear end of the vehicle down like this, because then you lose traction on the front tires and it'll be much harder to control it. And then the pulling, the trailer hitch will also have a weight limit on how much weight you can pull with that hitch. And I would say pretty large, like 12,000 pounds is usually one of the max on a normal like trailer that any of y'all might be pulling, usually the hitch, the tongue on the trailer might say rated at 12,000 pounds or 8,000 pounds. And also if you have a receiver on the back of your pickup or your car, that receiver that slides in there is also going to have a weight limit printed on it. So it's really good to pay attention to that, because I think it's where people get most in trouble, you know, is overloaded. I mean, just like Pablo said, and it's something. I live in the mountains in North Carolina, so I deal with it all the time with my dump truck. And, you know, I'll be going down a big hill, like I don't even know, 20% grade or something, with a loaded dump truck. You really got to be careful. You got to use your gears to slow that down. You don't want to overheat your brakes, even on a car, you know. So that the tongue weight and the gross vehicle weight that the trailer is rated to carry also includes the weight of the trailer. So you need to know how much the trailer weighs. So.
And then we talked about, you know, how do you figure out that weight? How do you know how much you're putting in? And when you're loading a trailer, you're really responsible for understanding that. You don't need to know the exact weight of everything. You should know the weight of water per gallon. You should know, you know, you can pick things up and get kind of a gauge if it's 25 pounds, 5 pounds, 50 pounds. If you need to make a little running note of like approximate weights of things, that's what you're going to have to do. And that's going to be the safest thing, but it is your responsibility. If you're driving the trailer, you should 100% be responsible for packing the trailer. If you use an outside service, that's something totally different, but it is your load. It is your drive. It is your life. So it's really important that you really know what's going on. So, you know, like if your trailer is all of a sudden wobbling when you're driving in the back end, you know, you distributed the weight incorrectly. It's too much in the back. So where can you find that space to put more on the front? I've actually carried bricks and just put them on the tongue of the trailer up in the front, something to redistribute that weight. So that is really something like that. How do you know that weight? Well, you just got to kind of guesstimate, and, you know, a little bit over is better than a little bit under. There was a question about, are there any other websites that you can recommend learning more about airbags, tongue weights, et cetera, et cetera? And I know there was a mention of YouTube, where I feel like we can find everything on YouTube, but does anybody have actual websites that they go to learn these things?
There's a lot of them. And I saw one a while back that was talking about airbags. And I think what Jen is talking about there is that if you feel like the rear end of your let's just say pickup, okay? That if you feel like the rear end of your pickup is being pushed down too far with your tongue weight of the trailer, you could have airbags that are adjustable on the pickup to raise that up. But what they said in this professionally done YouTube thing was that really that's just kind of a false fix. It's really not helping you that much to just jack up the back of the truck, you know, because you still have too much weight on the tires. It didn't change anything but the angle of the load. You know what I mean? So, you know, you don't want to overload the back of your truck either, you know? So, but the tongue, it's pretty simple to look, but there's lots of videos about stuff like that, really. I think this shouldn't be hard to find at all, but understanding your vehicle is the most important, you know?
Yeah. And
go ahead.
I was moving on to a different subject.
Good.
There is the biggest problem that I think that all of us see when we leave Burning Man is the amount of shit scattered all over the highway. And that kind of brings us to another point. There's a lot of people are using open cargo, you know, open trailers instead of enclosed trailers. And like really understanding the proper way to tie things down, covering loads, how to properly use a ratchet strap, things like that are also going to be really beneficial, because every year we do miles and miles of road cleanup. And it causes damage to cars behind you. It causes accidents. So that's one thing to like really start understanding in that trailer life, is like where those points of pressure are, where those pull directions are, proper ratchet strapping, not using bungees, not using tie-off cords. So that's something maybe we can talk about also.
Let's talk about how to tie down a load. I think that's a critical one.
You can't put too many ratchet straps on there. They don't weigh that much. And the other thing, like what Jenna was talking about, this is really important, is you can get a ticket for improper load. Believe me, I've gotten several. So, I mean, you can get a ticket for improper load if you don't have things tied down right, or something fell off, or something was dragging. I mean, the only tickets I've ever gotten for improper load were when I had like gravel leaking out of my dump truck or something like that, but not like big shit falling off of there. But that's really important. I think once you leave Playa, the tendency is just to throw everything on the trailer, right? And then if you got 1,200 miles to go, that could be a fucking disaster. You know, I mean, planning is the main thing, right, Jenna?
Yeah,
I would recommend tarping. If I've seen so many open loads out there, and so you get, there's two great things that I have, and that is I have a freaking crate full of ratchet straps of all different weight categories, and big thick ones for hauling hundreds of pounds, and thin ones for just tearing for bikes and stuff like that. And so having enough of these is never enough, because you end up wanting to tarp the load, and which means crisscrossing the ratchet straps around the whole top of it, and especially in front, so it doesn't catch the wind. If you can do that, then you can throw everything in there, and it's going to stay. But if you don't tarp it, then even taking refuse to the Berkeley dump station, you'll get fined for not tarping your load.
Well, the image behind Fixer shows a load not tarped, and it looked like it's ready to fall out.
It wasn't tarped at all, but it was tied down good. But we lost the brakes we didn't lose the brakes on that trip. It's a semi. The trailer had been sitting for a while, and we had worked on it and was working fine, but it got some cobwebs into the air brake system, and so the air brakes were not releasing quick enough. So my driver hit a really steep curve, hard curve, and when he tapped the brakes, they didn't release fast, and so it kind of turned him sideways, and he hit the guardrail. But we lost a service truck. It was almost a disaster. It was a disaster, but what Boy Scouts said too is important, because you can't just use 300-pound ratchets to hold a 1,000-pound piece of gear on your, So I mean, you need various strengths of ratchets depending on what you're tying down. That's for sure.
Does anybody need a ratchet tutorial? I just happen to have one.
Let's have it.
Okay. We're gonna get a little crude. This is how I teach everybody on my teams, because this is how it sticks. So I look at this end. Oh my, with the video. So I look at this. This is the top and this is the bottom. So I look at this as kind of like a head. This is where it gets weird. So I align it so that little through slot is visualized. Ooh, there you go.
Jenna, just turn your virtual background off, and then we'll be able to see it.
Yeah, you're gonna see my little house then.
Just for a quick second. A beautiful house.
Yeah, thanks. Come on. I know how to use a ratchet, but not a.
If you keep it in front of you, we could see it. It's
yeah,
just
I think so.
To the side of you.
All right. Okay, so in front. So this is there we go, in front of my head. So this is what I do. I take this where it's all lined up. I take this end, and I always say to myself, through the behind. So in the bum, you go through it, wrap it right up on top, above where the circle is going and pull the hair. So that's what I was in the bum, pull the hair. And that's how I always instruct everybody. And then you ratchet it down. You can see here, you ratchet it down as tight as you can. You don't start utilizing the ratchet strap until it is all the way tight to the base of whatever that you need to affix it to. And then, and only then, when there's no more tension that you can physically pull out, then you start ratcheting it around and around and around and around. And that will create that tight. You usually only need to click it 4, 5, 6 times if you've pulled all that tension out. And then you just push it down to lock it into place. So did that get captured all right with my...
Yay!
Yay!
Sandman Alejandro was like, "Hey, you should learn how to turn off virtual video."
I think we should also talk about bearings, because in 2018 on my way home, I had a bearing go out on my trailer, and it caught the actual wheel and tire on fire. So you know, bearings are something that you really have to make sure they're greased properly, that they're not loose, that you know, they're in good shape.
Well, Pablo, tell us how you assess whether the bearing is right or not. So I've got a trailer. It's been sitting outside for years. Somebody said, "Hey, you can take this trailer if you want to." How do I check out the bearings?
As far as I know, and Fixer might, you know more than me, but if you jack up the wheel, you can actually feel if it's loose, and then the nut inside, you have to pull the pin out and tighten it and turn the wheel to make sure it's tight, and then put the pin back in, and then you got to make sure you have it greased really good. If you open that bearing cup and you look inside and it's all rusted and everything, you got to replace those bearings.
Yeah, you really can't tell for sure unless you take the hub off and really check the bearings. If I was taking the trailer all the way across the country, you know, just a regular trailer, I would definitely pull the hubs and check that, you know, and that, it's not a hard thing to do, but if you don't know how to do it, then it is a hard thing to do. But it's not going to cost you very much to go to your local station or something to say, "Hey, pack these bearings, replace these bearings." Say what?
I think we lost Boy Scout there.
Hey, Boy Scout,
he's muted.
You're muted, Boy Scout.
There we go. There you go. Yeah. No, I always take my trailer to get maintenance sometime in the springtime when they're not. When my RV guy is got extra time, and have them check the tires too, because if you get a trailer that's been sitting in the yard, it's been likely sitting in the sun, and the sun has degraded all that rubber on there, and so you would look at the date on those tires and see how brittle they are. It's definitely
you don't want to see any
replacing.
Cracks. You don't want to see any cracks in the tires for sure. They're just not going to make it. I've lost so many tires, especially between Vegas and Fernley. It is that road is broken down in there. What's that stupid town down there? Anyway, I've broken down so many times between Vegas and so many tires, so many bearings. But
it's just
not
insurance.
a hard job to pack the bearings, but definitely check. Make sure you have a spare. Make sure you have a jack. And the other thing about trailer maintenance is make sure your lights work right, because you don't want somebody rear-ending you. And you don't want to be, and that's the other thing about practicing. You put somebody in a pickup or whatever pulling a trailer and they're not used to that. I've caught myself, millions of miles driving. I'm a CDL A driver too, but millions of miles driving, it's easy to forget you have a trailer back there. You're going to change lanes and you forget that you're 30 feet longer than you usually are. You really got to think about that. When you're driving, that's just experience, that's a disaster. But make sure your trailer lights are working, maybe have a few extra bulbs for your trailers. And then also the connection on your tongue of your trailer. they can screw up pretty easily, you know. And just a jack on your trailer. Make sure your jack's working right on the front of the trailer, because that's just a recipe for disaster too. You get in a weird situation and you need to change the trailer and the jack doesn't work right, or I can't tell you how many trailers I've moved for people that the jack handle just broke off in my hand, you know, and then I'm like, oh, where's my floor jack and where's the, you know, so there's a lot of stuff, you know.
Another thing regarding tires that I learned is on my camping trailer, they have different ratings for the tires. So I had bought some C-rated tires when I was supposed to have D-rated tires, and I went through those things. I know I went through at least 3 or 4 of them before I even learned that there was a higher rated tire that was supposed to be on my trailer. So you guys check your weight, what your tire says your limits are, and what it can handle.
Yeah, you might have had 8-ply tires instead of like 12-ply tires.
Exactly.
On every trailer, you should try to get 12-ply tires if you can. And you buy trailer tires are different than vehicle tires, and you never want to mix that. I mean, some guy gave me a bunch of trailer tires one time. I ran them on my truck, and they just ate them. I don't know why, because they should be stronger, but they're different. They're just different.
If a trailer's been sitting, somebody mentioned if it's been out in the sun for a while, it'll kill the tires, but they'll look okay. You know, you look at it, it's got tread on it. It looks okay. You inflate them, they holds the pressure, but they'll deteriorate really fast. And if you don't know about tires, find somebody that does know about tires and have them look at them. If the trailer's been sitting for a while in the sun, most likely it would be a good idea to replace the.
Yeah, it's dry rot is the problem that you'll have typically. It's dry rot. So you'll see cracks in the tire. I've pulled millions of miles of tires that weren't as good as they should have been, but it's better to not use tires that have dry rot and cracks in them and things like that. You know, it's just
because you're going to blow a tire.
On a single axle trailer. You know, you don't have much room for
errors. Yeah.
Yeah. But even on a box trailer, you know, you want to tie down stuff inside. Jenna was talking about that the other night. You know, you want to make sure everything's tied down inside so you don't break things. And you can open that door and it all falls out like Murray's Closet or whatever they call them. Only Vic's going to get that. But, and you want to stuff breaking. And it's so easy just to stuff the trailer when you're leaving. You know, you can take 2 days to load that trailer to go to the playa, and then you think you can load it in 30 minutes to come home. You know, it ain't going to happen, you know.
All right, we have.
There was a question there, I think, Jenna. What was it?
There's a couple good questions. I can speak on the first one from Arlena saying, any thoughts on towing with a Class C? I have towed with a Class C. There was a rental with a trailer. It was a large load. I knew how to drive it. It is a pain. It's gonna. That's going to come more to the ability of your vehicle's transmission and how that's working, and less about the trailer itself. Obviously, the tow hitch rating, what that is, but if your Class C is great, and it will be slow up the hills, and we should also talk on how to drive up and down hills with upshifting, downshifting, overdrive. And we can come right back to that, but I want to address Chris's question because it's a great one. It says, any advice on what to check when renting a trailer?
Most rental trailers have surge brakes, which are going to be set up in the trailer, from the manufacturer or from the rental company. So it's hard to say, how are you going to check their brake system and their tires and stuff. Just take a good look at everything that's there that I can think of. Fixer, you have any advice on that?
I think if it's like U-Haul or something like that, you're probably pretty safe there. I've never had one fail. One thing to keep in mind is if you're renting a U-Haul or a Penske or something like that, a lot of times they don't want you to pull any trailers that aren't their trailers. So oftentimes they won't even have a way to put a receiver on it, or they'll have a lock on it, or they'll have a special weird sized ball or something like that. And I would never do that, of course, but you can always figure a way to do it. But you could be in a problem if there was ever a problem. You know, you had a wreck or something and you're pulling somebody else's trailer, it might affect the. But what he's talking about surge brakes, what that means is the two kind of trailer brakes, really, for small trailers like that, is like a surge brake is if you hit the brakes on your pickup and then the trailer's pushing forward, there's a hydraulic kind of mechanical way that pushes on the tongue of the trailer and it slows down. It hits the trailer brakes. Electric brakes are controlled by a controller, which actually makes the trailer brakes engage. It's actually magnetic. If you look in the hub and you look at it, you think, God, how could that be strong enough? But it's just these magnets that pull the trailer brake. It's not disc brakes, it's regular rotor brakes, and then it's electrical and it actually engages the brakes. So that's how surge brakes work. But most trailers that you rent are going to be in pretty good shape. The good thing about that is if it messes up, you can always call them, you know. So
I think the biggest thing also with renting a trailer is just make sure you running the right amount of weight. Because I mean, I see so many trailers, U-Haul trailers coming into Burning Man that have so much weight on them. You know that they're over, and it's just not safe.
Oh yeah. Well, this whole workshop should be about trucks too, really, because people way overload those U-Haul trucks. I mean, bad. Most of those trucks are only rated about 6,000 pounds. You'd be surprised how low it is, you know. So everybody overloads them, and then they're loaded wrong, and you got people that don't have that much experience, and so
yeah,
I don't know. That's just important. And even on your own vehicles, don't overload them, you know.
Yeah, and that could also lead us to that conversation on driving and little tricks of driving. When you're hauling a trailer, you know, slow hills, up hills, fast going down hills, which is often the problem. And a lot of us don't really in our daily life utilize anything but that, you know, park, reverse, neutral, and drive. But when we are actually driving trailers, there's some things to think about. And you learn this on a motorcycle, you never, ever, ever brake in a corner. You always brake before a corner. And so that's a really good thing to do when you're doing any sort of trailers or large loads. If you're braking in the corner, you're going too fast around the corner for those heavy loads. So you really need to, you know, have some forethought on your speed, especially going downhill, and to release some of that pressure on those brakes. You know, those pumps of the brakes are going to be better than long standing high pressure on those brakes. That's when your brakes catch fire. So if you do pumping on your brakes a little bit here and there, that will help as well. And then that little number 2 underneath that drive is absolutely fantastic for slowing down your car when you're going down hills, especially on some of the hills around, you know, the playa. It will keep you from having to put too much extra pressure on your brakes. And then, you know, playing around with that if you're really overloaded, you'll probably have to put it in second gear going up hills, but the different power distribution that you get in those different gears. And then also some cars do have a fancy little overdrive button, which is really great for helping you get up hills. And it makes that compensation as well. So just understanding your car and playing around and kind of investigating is really great. If you're going to DIY and bring your own trailer in and bring your own vehicle in, you know, most people aren't going to, Sandman, brake before the turn. Most people
start your downshifting early too. Start your downshifting. Yeah. Don't be going too fast and then, I'm going to downshift because, right. You know, I remember my teen years, I pulled a transmission out, a torque converter out from under a big RV by thinking, I'll just downshift, you know. But it's downshifting is really important. Don't worry about how slow you're going, but be careful not to burn up your transmission either.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do to transmission is overheat it.
Mm-hmm.
Worst thing. That kills a transmission every time. So you'll burn up a $4,000 transmission trying to save $300 getting your trailer to the fly or something, you know. Not worth it.
You really have to be careful coming down off Donner Pass and using your engine brakes with the transmission.
I don't want no part of that pass. I've been down that pass times before, and that is no fun.
You cooked it going up the hill. That's the problem. Then you go downhill. It's like it's already hot.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and that also reminds you, you know, do before you leave both directions, check on things like your oil, check on your water, check on all of the brake fluids, just the general maintenance that, you know, I don't know, my dad used to do that before all of the trips we would go on. And it was really great to experience and see. And it really set up a precedent to like, oh yeah, we're going on a trip. You check all the tires, you check all just the basic things of making any big trek outside of your normal scope of what you're driving.
But I think part of the problem is a lot of theme camps are just on the verge of bankruptcy anyway, you know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in 12 years of taking a camp to fly that I was so broke I couldn't buy a new tire. I couldn't even get a hotel room. I slept in the front of Penske plenty of times, you know. And so, but it's important, you know. I mean, I'm not going to buy new tires. I'll make it, or I'll get a spare, you know. Well, you never know, and that is going to be way more problem than you thought it was going to be. But that's a financial issue that is hard, I think, for a lot of camps are just barely getting by, you know. I mean, we're still just barely getting by. We're 150 people, you know. But and I think another thing, like you're talking about brakes, Jenna, another thing people should understand about the way brakes work on a pickup or a car or whatever is that your emergency brake is only running your back brakes on your car. Okay, so the emergency brake, everybody calls it a parking brake, whatever. It's really an emergency brake too. If you lose your hydraulics, you can always pull, and that's just a manual cable going to your back brakes. So if you really need to slow down, like you're getting out of whack on the front, you're sliding, you're slipping or whatever, you can pull up a little bit on those brakes and slow your vehicle down, just in general, you know, driving. Because if you lost your brakes all the way, you may still have your emergency brake, you know, there.
Yeah, I think this is a really good, you know, this is probably one of the most difficult things of going every year is the trek there. It is the trek back. Unless you live real close, most of us are driving so many miles and so many tired miles. And so like this safety, you know, gray water is beautiful. We love it. You're not going to kill somebody, you know, with the wrong gray water system, but you will kill somebody on a highway. You will kill yourself. So it is really important to understand this is a really high risk thing, being a driver and also being a passenger and being on the road. And as a driver, you know, you always really want a passenger to help and assist you, to hand you that water bottle that just fell on the ground when you brake, you know, you had to slam on your brakes or whatever it is. But like really understanding the risk involved in it. And we all do it and we drive every day. So we don't really think about it. We don't think about those things. But once we start going into like, I want to get there, I want to get home mode, and we already have that anxiety, we're already depleted from packing, we're already depleted from the event, whatever it is, we start to really lose that thought process. And so if you have to make a checklist for yourself sometime like in March on things that you need to do to think about your planning, it's a really good idea. We can risk everything else in life and be high risk of other things if we can safely.
It's dangerous for cows too. I guarantee you do not want to drive from the Playa to Nixon, or actually even past to Fernley, or around Pyramid either. You don't want to drive at night there. I hit a cow. I had a 1,200-pound cow. Black as night. It was 2 a.m. No, it was 11. And I totaled a truck just out of Nixon. I mean, it is no fun to hit a big cow. Believe me. It was a really, we've had 2 people in our crew hit cows on that road, totaled both trucks, basically. And that's dangerous. You could kill yourself easy. And it is not, I've had to do it hundreds of times working up there, and I probably spend 2 months a year, maybe more out there, even though I live in North Carolina. But that road is dangerous. There's a lot of cows on that. There's open pasture down there. So there's a lot of cows down there. Really, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I have to sometimes, but I don't like it. If you have any other way, stop in Gerlach, you want to get off Playa, whatever, but don't drive that road at night if you can help it.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't have a choice in like on the Exodus line. We get in it, we see that's only 3 hours for some reason. You get in it, you're sitting 8, or vice versa. So we don't always have the exact choice leaving on that drive, but it's really good to leave space. If you do have that night drive, you've been sitting in line for 8 hours, you're exhausted, you're bored, you're hungry, you're pissed off, find space. There are little pullouts and there are camp spots along the way. Know where those spots are, know where your places are also. And just take that, it's a working vacation for a lot of us. So, treat ourselves in that way where we have that space and the ability to make choices that are better for our loads and for ourselves.
Let me add one more thing about hazards on the road. You really don't want to swerve to miss a rabbit. Several drivers get killed doing that. And better the rabbit than you, Now, when you're talking about a cow, you're going to hit the cow anyway. There's trying to swerve to miss a cow is probably just as dangerous. You can roll over these big top heavy RVs, or if you're towing a trailer, just drive right on through whatever the hell it is. We come from the north. I come from Portland, and about every other year we see cattle on the road between Alturas and Cedarville. There's always stock up there, and sometimes other parts of that trip. And of course it's always right when you come around a bend, So we usually go slower than you would need to do strictly, just to be aware, just to be ready for whatever the hell appears on the road around the corner. I'd rather get home an hour later and not have problems. Just a suggestion.
Alejandro had a really good question. He said, what makes a good driver? Is it okay if I answer that one, you guys?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, I do. I hire drivers. And so what I look for in drivers skill is always really great and experience is really great, but that's not what makes a good driver, because all of that can be learned when you have somebody that has patience, attention to detail, and you're I want to say like a confidence in what they're doing. I have taught people how to back up trailers. That's one of my specialty that I love to do. I love to back up trailers in obscure situations. All of this can be taught, but you just need someone that is going to have the patience, that is going to stay fully engaged and have attention, that knows their limitations or can see those limitations and can plan ahead. You definitely want to make sure that person is somebody that knows to drink water, knows to eat, knows to take breaks. So the core of what makes a good driver is that. How do you become an excellent driver? It's just practice. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of understanding your angles when you're turning, understanding the different mechanics, but that can be taught as long as the core of that is really great.
And then well-rested and sober.
Oh, but that's a given.
I know, but still, coming out of the playa.
I guess maybe not for everybody. Yeah. Yeah, well,
and I think good driver also would be know what you're driving. You know what I mean? I don't care how good a driver you in, you jump in something you're not used to driving, it could be a problem. I mean, in general, it depends on the person, obviously, but you wouldn't want to stick somebody who's never drove. Okay, Joe, you drive you drive Nixon, okay? I'm tired. And it's a big overloaded truck and trailer, and they don't know what they're doing. It's 2 a.m, and, you know, take that extra day to rest. I don't know. It's so crazy. People spend all this money and time and effort and all year long planning and blah, blah, blah. And they can't take one extra day to get home alive, you know? You know, and like you're saying, Jenny, you think you're going to be 3 hours in Exodus and you're 12 or whatever. I had so many people last year, we were short on people at Teardown. They're like, man, we left, you know, 7 a.m. Monday, and we didn't get to the pavement until, you know, 12 o'clock at night. And then I was like, other people left at 10 o'clock at night and got to the pavement at 12 o'clock at night. And you could have stayed here and fucking helped us, you know? I mean, everybody's so ready to get in that car, get the hell out of there. You know?
Yeah, one thing I do, so I run camps, and my rule for my camp is that, you know, those pack up days, we do our final pack at night. It's usually cooler. We do pack up everything except for like your tent, your breakfast, your whatever. And we don't leave until the morning. That gives us a full, and that requires a day of rest for people leaving. You don't get to just pack up a trailer and be like, okay, bye, I'm out of here. No, you pack up a trailer as a camp, as our team, get it done. Everybody wakes up in the morning refreshed, feeling good. And then we drive out the trailers. And that's really saved us from a lot of crap and a lot of those risky situations.
I see a question here in the chat about how do you pick a good route for large rigs and towing friendly routes? And there's several ways you could do that. The E-Playa that Burning Man has a large place to ask questions and so on. And I've gotten some good information from there over the years, or some of the Facebook groups from your area saying, hey, you know, which route would you recommend with whatever your needs are? I think that kind of, you know, that's our fellow burners can help us out. A lot of us have done it a lot. We've done every route you could do, and you can help people out. So that's a suggestion where you could get that information.
Yeah, the Burning Man hive mind is pretty amazing, really. It's crazy.
Yeah, sometimes you're going to get, I know when I used to come from Portland, I used to live in Portland, Vic. Our camp would come that direction. We would go an hour out of the way to go where there was less elevation change. And it was so long ago we mapped it, but that's a really good thing. I'm going to search for that elevation change mapping and see, and then I'll try and just throw it out there on one of the E-Playa forums for anybody to find. Because you can do everything on the internet. I'm sure you can map a route based on elevation change. I just don't know that.
But think about temperature too, because some of those stretches of road, like coming in, well, not coming into Vegas, but from Vegas to Reno, it's so hot. I mean, that road is so hot. It'll just eat your truck. I mean, in so many ways. So it's not always just elevation, but that's definitely important, especially when you're pulling a load.
Slacker, do you know what those navigation systems are for the big rigs and RVs?
Are there special navigation systems for that?
Yeah, that's what Slacker is saying. They also make navigation systems for big rigs and RVs.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, if you know it and you want to throw it in the chat, you can do that. But that's something I'll also look into.
One of the things we brushed over kind of in the beginning was, you know, how to load a trailer. And I think one of the things that can be important for people is to set your items up outside of your trailer and categorize them. Put all your densely stuff in this one area, all your big stuff, you know, that you have to get in the, you know, the middle section, all your lighter weight stuff to the other side, and start packing your denser stuff first. You know, you might have to put a big stove inside, you know, to get a space for it, but then you can put your dense stuff underneath it and around it, you know, and things like that. But I think by, you know, separating your items before you load, you can organize it a lot better. You can pack a lot better and make it, and also you can check your weight a lot better because you can keep some notes about how much weight you're putting in.
And there's a lot of storage options around Gerlach and Empire too, that you don't have to pull your stuff. I know a lot of camps want to have all their stuff, their infrastructure for regionals and stuff, but if you're only using it once a year, I mean, storage is expensive around Reno, but you can rent trailers or put a trailer in Empire and pull it in yourself, or find somebody to pull it in for you if you have an extra ticket or something like that. Or, you can rent, there's several OSS vendors that rent dry vans that include round trip delivery to the playa, which is so much easier than unloading, twice, 4 times instead of 2 times, we had storage in Fernley, we'd have to rent a big truck, load it up, unload it in playa, figure out what to do with that truck. You never had time to take it back. You pay a cleaning fee, then you got to load it again, then you got to unload it again, then you got to clean that truck. So, renting, there's just a little bit more options now for renting mobile storage, more or less, So we started last year this cool thing. I'm not trying to toot what we do because a bunch of people do it, but not this, but we had a trailer last year that had 8 compartments. It was a 48 and had 8 compartments in it. So people were just renting, a 4 by 12 by 8 foot high space. We put it at the port, per se, what they call where the DC program is for container storage. So people just had their small camp of stuff in that unit, and then we brought in 8 people's camps in one trailer. So it's kind of a good way to keep people off the road and all that kind of thing too. So
can you sign me up for next year there, Fixer?
You're hooked up. You're in. You're ready to go.
It is really nice. Our tiny little camp stores a little bit of stuff in Reno, which has been really nice to only pull it that couple hours, but it does get really expensive. So I always am trying to find ways to go in with other camps. So using those outside services is really great. Even, tapping into what Fixer does or to anybody else. It's always hard when it's like annual, just money just going out the window. But if you can share those resources, we literally built a community with 80,000 people. And sometimes we forget that we're in a community and we can ask for help and we can ask for assistance and we can see who's coming from our areas and we can tag team on, pulling things in, whether it being DIY or through a service. So it's really important to remember that we're not alone in this.
Yeah, last year was a nightmare. I could have rented 20 trailers last year. I guarantee you, I could have rented 20 pups with all that U-Haul disaster that happened. Everybody was figuring out you just can't count on that, And so, I don't know. I'm going to build another one this year that's bigger. It's like 8 by 8, more or less, with its own door. So each camp will have like an 8 by 8 space. And for a 20, 30 person camp, that's about right, really. So.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure everybody sees the chat too. Alejandro has a really great link that he threw in there from Go RVing. And then Slacker got back to that question, and it's a Garmin RV 780 GPS navigator with traffic. So if you want to look those up, if you want to, copy before this whole session is over and lose all that information, you might want to divert yourself to the chat over there.
And there's ground storage in Empire too. Black Rock Mini has 12 by 20 foot units, I guess, there. So there's an option to store a little bit closer too. So
yeah, great. Hey, moderator, how are we doing on time?
Well, let's see. It's about 3:30. We've got nominally another 15 minutes if we want it. I don't know if we need it.
Yeah, that's about right.
We've covered just about everything we intended to cover. Are there any missing pieces here?
I would post that you mentioned that we're a huge community. where would you go to ask these questions? Where would you go?
Which questions is that, Al?
About like route options and just for help packing your trailer, especially with locals and stuff. It'd be good to share that resource. Thanks, Galaxy.
Well, the TCO group, the main TCO group on Facebook has got about 6,000 people in there. And you can find out almost anything in there about running the camp. So it's a pretty good resource.
Asking on your local Facebook group for, routes and stuff is very helpful. People will give you, I'm in Orange County, California. So, the people will have all their arguments on going up the 5 or going 395 or, taking the 90 or not. And, all these different routes. So you'll get a lot of good information just asking people in your local area. If you want to, if you're coming from, who cares, Boston, you can get good information from other people who've done that route a few times.
Yeah, we have also the ePlaya, all the forums there. I've utilized that before. That has a good reach, but and that's especially if you want to stay off social media. Most of us are pretty connected in on social media. So your Facebook groups are going to be some of the best resources for all of those. Almost every major town will have some sort of Burning Man group, as well as there are multiple different Facebook groups for theme camp TCOs. And you can find the builders and makers group, you can find theme camp running, you can find, there's so many. So if you just start searching in that social media bar or like go into the ePlaya and really just start posting stuff up.
Yeah, there's a pretty good Burning Man transport and storage Facebook group too.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, there's one in there.
Alejandro, you don't have that on like
Thanks.
Your hip pocket, I'm sure. You're so good at this.
Yeah, I'm not in the Facebook groups yet, so I don't have those links.
Yeah,
that one's easy to find. Just Burning Man transport and storage.
Yeah, and I will say
there's actually a Burning Man CDL driver Facebook group.
One thing that we didn't talk about was weight distribution hitches. I know like on my Denali, the vehicle's rated at, I think, to tow 8,000 pounds, but my trailer hitch says 7,000 pounds without a weight distribution hitch and 10,000 pounds with an weight distribution hitch. And a weight distribution hitch does help, keep that the center of your vehicle going down. So for me, it's been a helpful, use, and for some vehicles, obviously you can tow more if you have that set up.
Can you explain what the weight distribution hitch is?
Yeah, basically there's two big heavy bars that go between your ball mount and the trailer. So basically what happens is where your trailer might dip down, this metal bar that's running in between is under tension, and basically it's transferring the weight to your front tire and your back tires of your trailer to help level your trailer. And you can adjust how much tension you put on it. It's not good for all vehicles. Like I have a Volkswagen Touareg, and on that vehicle, it says it can pull 7,700 pounds, but it says 5,000 pounds on the hitch. And it says, do not use a weight distribution hitch. So I don't know if this vehicle has some, frame system that's not good for weight distribution hitches, but it says right on the hitch, do not use a weight distribution hitch. So
probably because it's a unibody. Probably because it's a unibody.
Probably.
You can bend the frame. You can bend the whole frame.
Yep.
Where it's just pushing down the springs, it's not going to be as bad. And that also helps sway. There's kind of like sway bars too. That thing. But those will smack you in the face. Believe me. You got to watch out for those things.
Yeah, they're
Somebody said only for bumper pull. That's right. Those are only for bumper pull. And we haven't even talked about fifth wheel or anything like that. That's another whole subject. But
thank you, Abby, for that link on that Burning Man group over there for the shipping and storage.
Oh, that's Abby. Thanks, Abby. That's my radar. She hears the helicopters way before I do.
Nice.
So are you a CDL driver, Jenna?
No way. That would make my blood alcohol level have to be way lower.
Too much alcohol in your blood and too much blood in your alcohol stream?
No, I'm not a CDL driver. I just run and manage teams.
Yeah.
I thought about it, but I don't have a need for it. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Thanks, Abby, again for another great link.
Okay, anything else? Anything we haven't covered?
We haven't really talked about towing art cars, really. I mean,
well, how could that go wrong? How could you possibly
a lot of what we
go
talked
wrong?
about would be kind of relatable, but making sure you got that stuff tied down right and not overloaded and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's some really good YouTube videos on tying down vehicles properly onto trailers, because a lot of people are doing them wrong and literally just loosen up as you're driving.
Yeah. Oh, you got to check it. Yeah. I mean, like when you're going down the road
that's
in
something.
a semi flatbed, you know, the highway patrol can tell if you're not tied down right because those straps will vibrate. They really shouldn't wing in the wind. You know, they should be really tight. If they're flopping around, then you're not tight enough. And you got to check your load. You know, definitely got to check your load every 100 miles, a couple 100 miles, probably.
Well, and that's something we haven't mentioned, and that is that if you're towing a trailer, you should stop, as you pointed out, frequently. Take a look at it, see how, are the bearings heating up, or, is your load shifting? Is it all tied down right? Check everything.
If you're tying down a vehicle, if you're tying down a vehicle, I drive a wrecker too. And what people think you really just tie the vehicle down across it, down. No, what you really need to do is tie the front end out at an angle, and tie the rear end at an angle so that you're pulling it this way. It can't go forward or back. Then you can put some straps to hold it down too. But the most important thing is that you're coming from the front and the back to the front of your trailer or your wrecker. So you're pulling front and back and it can't really move. Those straps just go straight down. That doesn't keep it from moving,
Yeah, I always like to think of it as a box, like how you would make your box. Your tightest tension poles are going to be that way, or a triangle, as long as it's like exactly equal in the middle. So understanding also where that shift can be is really important.
Yeah.
I saw a really good YouTube video that talked about tying down your vehicle, and some people were thinking you crisscrossed your lines, but when they showed what happened, if one tie down breaks off, the whole car will shift and just fall off the trailer. And so you definitely want to, if you're pulling a trailer or pulling a vehicle on a trailer or even any load, you should watch some of these videos on how to do it properly, because they're really helpful, because doing this crisscrossing design that looks cool is really, really unsafe.
And if you're tying down a vehicle that has a unibody, you don't want to tie to the body to pull it down, because you're going to bend the frame. I mean, there is no frame. The whole body is the frame. But that's why you see, like on records where they'll have straps going across the tire, you tie it down with the tires on all four tires. You don't pull down on the frame of those unibodies. And even if it was an R car, you don't want to bend the frame, so.
Yeah, and isn't that because there's springs, your shocks and whatnot? When you're tying down the tires, it's the most rigid thing closest to the ground. But when you're tying, off a bumper, you have your shocks in your vehicles that
right
will down and then cause shifts.
Yeah. And height, that's another thing we haven't talked about. Be careful on your height when you load a trailer, don't make it too tall. And you got to watch out. I know a lot of pro drivers that pulled under, gas station awnings and stuff, and it's a $10,000 disaster, I mean. So
I did watch a friend drive into a hotel being like, I am too tired. We're going to check into a hotel. I've got this. And then not take into calculation the air conditioning that was on top of the RV when she pulled the hotel. And so those things you don't think about until it's far too late a lot of the time. So really understanding that, especially rental vehicles usually will have on tall vehicles their height on it. And then you're never really going to deal with bridges unless you live in some obscure area and there's some like short bridges that they'll give you notices about. But those little things on like, a gas station, hotels, things like that. I don't know, fast food.
ATM, bank.
Yeah.
Car wash.
Starbucks.
Starbucks. McDonald's.
I don't know how many drive-throughs I've seen where they get wedged in there. Don't go into drive-throughs with the trailer. Never. It's just asking for trouble. It's just you just and never try to back out either. Just always just pull through. Be aware of where you're driving and and never
just pull through and keep going. Don't look back. Keep going. And don't have a sign on your truck that says Burning Man or bust. You don't want to know where you're going.
And the trailer lights, they'll pull you over if you don't have good trailer. The lights are obvious on there. And so I've actually packed a set of magnetic trailer lights, because if I get pulled over and I got a broken light bulb, I can pretty much beat the ticket by, hey, here, stamp, plug in and off you go.
They make those now too that are wireless. They make those wireless, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it just wireless stops the hassle from, because they're looking to figure out one way of giving you a ticket or not. Sometimes, but
oh man, especially on 407 out there between 12 Mile and Gerlach, man, I got stopped 3 times last year.
They'll stomp your ass, that's for sure.
Yeah, some states, like when I lived in Nevada, you didn't have to have a front license plate. You only had to have a back. But when you go into these areas, they'll ticket you. So thinking about making sure, I've had friends take off license plate and putting them on top of a stack of bikes, whatever's in the back. Make sure you have your front and your back. Just little things like that.
I just remembered one thing about the electric trailer brakes. In the state of California, you have to be able to have a emergency stop off so it's basically a battery, so that if your trailer gets loose, it'll pull the brakes on it and prevent it from flying into whatever.
Most trailers have that.
And check, you have to check that battery, because that'll 3 years in discharge, it's going to be dead. If it just says charging all the time.
Mechanical too. I think I know they make those mechanical too. It just has a little cable that goes to the truck. So if your trailer comes off, that's another thing we haven't talked about, is chaining your trailer properly. You definitely want to chain your trailer properly. Over chain it. Don't make them too short. Don't let them drag. You get a big time ticket for dragging trailer chains out in Nevada, because it'll cause fires. I've seen so many fires out there that were obviously caused by people dragging trailer chains. Those sparks.
How do you make them not drag, Fixer?
Twist them. You can twist the chain. You don't think about it usually, but you can take that chain and just twist it until it's the right length and hook it on.
Yeah. We also got a nice comment from Marlena saying to wipe off your signal lights after you're off playa. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I was reading somewhere too that if anyone's got an air compressor, it's a great way to clean off all that dust. Help with maintenance.
What dust? Shit. Okay, guys, I think we're there. We're at the end of our time. Thank everyone for participating. This has been really fun. I've learned a few things. I thought I knew everything I needed to know, but I've learned a few things. And I hope everybody else has learned a few things.
I just want to say one other thing. Make sure your trailer frame is not all rusted and about ready to break in half.
Is that a bad thing?
Inspect your trailer. When you go take your CDL driver test, there's 82 things you have to check on that rig. So a lot of times you think, that trailer's good to go. You look under there, it's completely rusted out. You don't want that something breaking in halfway to freaking playa. That's for sure.
You know,
so anyway, it's just one more thing. Check everything on your trailer.
That rust look is really sought after these days. So we're going design different versus technicality.
That's how I got this young wife. I'm all rusty.
Nice. Cool. Hey,
well,
thanks,
I
Vic.
think we're all a little dusty here, but anything else? Any other last words? All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
This was fun. Y'all are smart.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.